Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is lighting a cigarette. Someone else is pouring a drink. Another person is grinding coffee beans at 6 in the morning because without it, the day doesn't quite start. Someone is taking a pill to sleep. Someone else is taking one to wake up. A teenager in a basement somewhere is trying something for the first time, chasing a feeling they can't name yet. We tell ourselves these are modern problems, products of stress, of capitalism, of too much screen time and not enough meaning. But here's what the archaeological record actually says. Humans have been deliberately altering their own consciousness for at least 50,000 years, possibly longer. And in every single civilization ever discovered, every one, without exception, archaeologists have found evidence of psychoactive substance use. Not some of them, all of them. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And patterns this old, this universal, this consistent across cultures that never met each other, they don't come from habit. They come from something much deeper. Let's start with what we've actually found. In a cave in the Judean desert, archaeologists discovered traces of THC, the active compound in cannabis, in a burial site dating to around 2,700 years ago. The substance had been burned deliberately during a funeral ritual in a space specifically designed to concentrate the smoke. In northern Iraq, a Neanderthal burial site called Shanidar Cave, over 60,000 years old, contained pollen from plants including ephedra, a powerful stimulant still used in medicine today. Whether it was placed intentionally is debated, but it was there. In the Andes, coca leaves have been found in burial sites dating back 8,000 years. Not scattered randomly, carefully placed, deliberately preserved, treated as something worth keeping with the dead. In Siberia, shamanic burial sites from 3,000 years ago contain Amanita muscaria, the red-capped mushroom that produces intense hallucinations. The mushrooms weren't food. They were tools. In ancient Egypt, traces of nicotine and cocaine, both plants that are native exclusively to the Americas, have been detected in mummies dating to 1000 BCE. Nobody has fully explained how they got there. The trade routes that could account for it shouldn't have existed yet. These aren't isolated discoveries. The closer archaeologists look, the more they find. The pattern doesn't thin out as you go further back in time. If anything, it gets denser. For a long time, the scientific consensus was that psychoactive plant use was something that emerged alongside agriculture and civilization, that it was a product of leisure time, of complexity, of people having enough stability to experiment. That story is almost certainly wrong. The oldest confirmed evidence of intentional psychoactive use, at least that we've found so far, pushes back beyond any settled civilization. Indigenous Amazonian communities have used ayahuasca, a brew requiring the precise combination of two specific plants whose interaction produces a powerful psychedelic compound, for so long that their oral histories offer no memory of a time before it. The knowledge of how to make it, which requires combining a vine containing DMT with a separate plant containing the enzyme needed to make DMT orally active, is so chemically specific that researchers still can't fully explain how anyone discovered it empirically. You don't stumble onto that combination by accident. In the American Southwest, peyote, a cactus containing mescaline, has been found in archaeological sites over 5,700 years old. The Huacal people of Mexico, who still use it ceremonially today, say their relationship with the plant is older than their history, that they didn't adopt it, that they were born into it. In ancient Mesopotamia, one of the earliest literate civilizations, the Sumerians had a word for the opium poppy. They called it hul-gil, the plant of joy. They were cultivating it deliberately by 3,400 BCE, not discovering it, cultivating it, which means the discovery happened earlier, possibly much earlier, in a time before writing, before cities, before most of what we call history. The oldest brewery ever discovered dates to 13,000 years ago in what is now Israel. That is older than farming, older than permanent settlements. People were brewing beer before they had decided to stay in one place. Let that sit for a moment. Humans figured out fermentation, a chemically complex, multi-step process, before they figured out agriculture. Some researchers have proposed, seriously, that the desire to produce alcohol may have been one of the motivations that drove early humans to cultivate grain in the first place. That civilization didn't produce brewing. that brewing may have helped produce civilization. So why? This is the question that makes neuroscientists and anthropologists genuinely uncomfortable, because the honest answer doesn't fit neatly into any existing theory of human behavior. Every other species on Earth, with a small number of exceptions, avoids psychoactive substances instinctively. Animals that accidentally consume fermented fruit typically avoid it afterward. The neurological systems that govern disgust and avoidance are ancient and powerful. They exist precisely to protect animals from consuming things that alter their physiology. Humans ran those systems in reverse. We found substances that altered our consciousness, and we went back for more. We learned to cultivate them, refine them, trade them, ritualize them. We built entire cosmologies around them. We risked our lives to obtain them. In the case of honey hunters in ancient rock paintings, literally scaling cliff faces with smoke torches to reach hives. Not for the honey, for the mead they could make from it. The neurologist Michael Pollan, in researching the history of psychedelics, proposed something that has since gained significant traction in anthropology: that the human drive to alter consciousness is not a pathology and not a weakness. It is, in his framing, a fundamental human drive, as basic and as old as hunger, thirst, or sex. That the desire to occasionally step outside ordinary consciousness is not something humans developed. It is something humans arrived with. There's a term for this now in the literature. Some researchers call it the fourth drive, alongside hunger, thirst, and the reproductive impulse. The drive not just to survive, but to occasionally not be here. To step out of the relentlessness of ordinary waking consciousness and return changed. Every culture in human history found a way to do it. And every culture wrapped it in ritual and meaning, because they understood, before anyone had the neuroscience to explain it, that these substances were not toys. They were doors. And doors, in every tradition, have rules about when you open them and why. What changed wasn't the impulse. What changed was the ritual. For most of human history, psychoactive substances were not recreational. That distinction is important, and we tend to gloss over it. The shaman who consumed psilocybin mushrooms was not getting high for fun. He was performing a specific function for the community, accessing a state of consciousness that ordinary waking life couldn't reach, and returning with information, or healing, or connection to something the community needed. The Eleusinian Mysteries, the most important religious festival of ancient Greece, attended by Plato, Aristotle, Sophocles, and thousands of ordinary Athenians for nearly 2,000 years, centered on the consumption of a drink called kykeon. Researchers have long suspected kykeon contained ergot, a fungal growth on grain that produces compounds chemically similar to LSD. The experience was described, consistently, across centuries of accounts as transformative, as the most important thing that had ever happened to them. The mysteries were taken so seriously that revealing what happened inside them was punishable by death. For 2,000 years, nobody wrote it down. The secret was kept that completely. This wasn't decadence. This was theology. In the Amazon, in Siberia, in Mesoamerica, in ancient Greece, in the earliest Vedic traditions of India, the pattern repeats. The substance, the ritual container, the community witness, the integration. The understanding that altered states were not escapes from reality but tools for navigating it. That architecture, the ritual container, is what collapsed. When these substances moved out of ceremonial contexts and into markets, when they became commodities rather than sacraments, something that had been carefully managed for tens of thousands of years became something else entirely. The door remained. The frame around it disappeared. Today, we are living through something genuinely unprecedented. For the first time in human history, a significant portion of the population is altering its consciousness daily, through caffeine, alcohol, prescription medication, cannabis, nicotine, and dozens of other compounds, entirely outside any ritual or community framework. Alone, habitually, often without even thinking of it as altering consciousness at all. The morning coffee is not a ceremony. The after-work drink is not a ritual. The sleeping pill is not a doorway to anything. And at the same time, almost as if something is pulling back toward the old pattern, there is a quiet resurgence happening in neuroscience and psychiatry. Psilocybin is now being studied in clinical trials for depression, addiction, and end-of-life anxiety. MDMA is in late-stage trials for PTSD. Ketamine clinics have opened in cities across the world. Researchers are using these substances not recreationally, not spiritually but therapeutically, and finding with some consistency that carefully controlled altered states produce outcomes that decades of conventional treatment could not. They are, almost without realizing it, rebuilding the container. The substances were never the problem. The oldest human instinct was never the problem. What changed, what has always changed, when this goes wrong is the loss of the frame, the ritual, the reason. 50,000 years ago, a human being sat in a cave somewhere, consumed something that changed how their mind worked, and experienced something they couldn't explain. They went back. Every generation since has gone back, in one form or another, in every corner of the world, in every civilization, in every era, including this one, including right now, including you, this morning, in whatever form that took. We have never stopped. We have never fully understood why. And we have never, not once in the entire span of human history, found a way to make each other stop trying.